Today, we're taking an unfiltered look at the Trump administration's war on higher education. Is cracking down on international students the secret ingredient to making America great again? Also, instead of being celebrated for their achievements, West Point grads are made to endure an insulting commencement address. More disrespect on Memorial Day, and we're going to talk about the corrupt presidential pardons that are happening right now. Plus, Trump has a falling out with his best friend forever, Elon, and $1 billion is taken out of money going that was supposed to go for U.S. Army barracks, the repairs of those barracks, and it's going to pay for the southern border deployment. This is Truth in the Barrel, a different kind of whiskey rebellion. Welcome to Truth in the Barrel. I'm Amy McGrath, and I'm really excited today because my co-host is Mallory Hagan. She's co-hosted before. Denver is out of town, out of the country, actually. Mallory is a political candidate, former Miss America at the great Mallory Hagan. Thank you for being with us today.
Amy, thanks for having me back. I'm so happy to be here. It's great to see you again. I want to encourage everybody, if you all are not following Truth in the Barrel, you definitely should be. Truth in the Barrel on Instagram, there's X, Blue Sky, YouTube, and there are some exciting things coming up from the Truth in the Barrel. If I recall, you guys are getting ready to start a live show. I think it's June 10th, right?
That's right. Tuesday, June 10th, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. And I want to make sure that everyone joins the chat for that because you've got to, that's the way to interact with us during that incredible first show.
Yeah, it'll be live, and people may not realize that you will be able to see it on X. Like you can pull up your X and watch the show, but in order to participate in the show when something is live, they really need to be subscribed to all on Truth in the Barrel on YouTube. So if you want to interact with Amy in Denver at the live show, make sure you're subscribed and you're ready to rock and roll. And if you have questions or things you want them to chat about beforehand, just send an email to the show.
I also want to put a plug in, Mallory, for your podcast, Pretty Furious.
Oh, thank you.
Take a listen to that too.
Yeah, Pretty Furious. We talk about politics, but we also do a little bit of pop culture and everything in between. Mostly just all the things we're pretty furious about that are happening week to week. So we'd love for folks to
And there's
listen.
a lot
Thank
there.
you. Yeah,
There's a lot.
Daily.
Excellent. All right. So for today's Whiskey Minute, all right, we've got Horse Soldier. So I saw this, Mallory, in a bar. Well, it wasn't really in a bar. It was in a hotel in Indianapolis when I went up there for my kids' soccer tournament. And it was behind the bar there, and it's called Horse Soldier. This is what it looks like.
We have some of that on our bar shelf. Yeah.
Okay, so you know about this.
My husband does.
Of course.
I have, since I was here last, announced that I'm in fact having a baby. So I don't know anything about that right now.
So I'll be the one drinking. Yeah. Congratulations.
Listen, I'll cheers you with my coffee mug later on.
Excellent. So this is Horse Soldier, and your husband knows about this because he's in the United States Army. Is he Special Forces?
He's not. No, he's in acquisitions, a program manager.
Okay, but they're all working together. And Horse Soldier was started by a group of former Special Forces soldiers. These were the guys who, after 9/11, were inserted into Afghanistan. They were elite Green Berets. They were inserted into Afghanistan, and they mounted a bunch of horses and went after Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan in the few days following 9/11. And they were really successful. They took over Mazar-e-Sharif from the Taliban. That was a Taliban stronghold at the time. And they called themselves the Horse Soldiers. They started this whiskey, and now they have, Mallory, or building, I should say, a distillery in Pulaski County, Kentucky. That's near Somerset, near Lake Cumberland. Yeah. And their whiskey's very good. So my husband told me about this initially. I saw it again last weekend in Indianapolis. So today, I'm cheers, and I'm going to be drinking Horse Soldier.
Tell me a little bit about what the flavors are like. What do you taste when you taste Horse Soldier?
The thing that comes out is boldness. Okay. I mean, it's not a flavor that like I particularly that jumps out at me as like, I love this. It doesn't jump out at me as I love this. It's very manly.
Okay.
But it does grow on you. It's very bold. Initially, when I first had it, I was like, not sure I really like it. But now it's grown on me, gotta say.
Yeah, it's grown on you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll save that one. I'll save that one. I'll save that one for sometime in November. Maybe Thanksgiving. I can have a cup of Horse Soldier, a glass.
Yeah, it might be a while.
Cup of whiskey. I mean, maybe 18-year-old me would have said a cup of whiskey. Anyway,
might be a while. All right. So let's get going. This week, the Trump administration escalated its war on higher education by ordering U.S. embassies around the world to pause scheduling visa interviews for international students hoping to attend universities here in America. So I have a lot to say about this, but I want to throw it back to you, Mallory, because the first thing that pops out at me is, did the elite universities, are they not sufficiently nice to Donald Trump? Is this why he's going after them?
Well, I mean, as you very well know, higher education means higher critical thinking skills. It means better educated populace. It means well-rounded individuals who are capable of thinking for themselves and are less susceptible to a cult-like mentality, which is what MAGA is. So the sooner he can attack higher education in any capacity, limit access to that higher education, or demonize it, he's speaking to his base of people who have decided that higher education is for the elite. They don't speak to us. They don't know anything about the real world. And he is, in turn, reducing access to that education so people won't have any reason to speak out against him. So I think it's pretty much a part of the plan, and it always has been. He's demonized education, science, experts. I mean, anyone who's smarter than him or has the ability to think critically about an issue, because it undermines his ability to lie about anything and not be checked.
Well, it's interesting to me. He's taking this as a national security issue. So the Trump administration is saying that they're going to restrict international students from attending Harvard in particular. We know he doesn't like Harvard, but
because they stood up to him.
Right. But the official reason is now to root out anti-Semites, woke radicals, dangerous terrorists that come in via international student visas. And there's a new rationale that this came out just a couple of days ago. But that first rationale is really interesting to me because we haven't had any international terrorists on student visas. I looked this up since 9/11. And on 9/11, there was one of the hijackers came in on a student visa. Many of them came in that were studying to become pilots. Some of them came in on business visas. Some of them came in on tourist visas, but like one. So we don't have a problem with international students and terrorism. And now the new reason, Mallory, is to help working class Americans get those slots. So the Trump administration is now saying, hey, these international students are taking these Harvard slots, and so we're going to restrict them, and we're going to help our working class students get those slots. And this is really cynical here, because none of what he's doing is going to help working class citizens get into elite universities. If the Republicans really wanted to do this, if Trump really wanted to do this, he ought to talk to his House Republican caucus, because they just passed that big, beautiful bill. Right. And that actually makes it harder for students to get Pell Grants. And who are the students that get Pell Grants? The ones who come from poor working class families. Yeah. So, there's this nonpartisan education organization that's basically said, that's estimated that the bill that these House Republicans just passed will change the Pell Grants and deprive 700,000 people of eligibility for Pell Grants, basically cutting the funding for higher education. So they're saying one thing, we love you, working class, and then slashing it slashing the Pell Grants.
I mean, that's the entirety of their shtick from start to finish, right? It's speak to the working class Americans, and everything you do doesn't help them. But I just want to just pause for a second and notice that we have a strong legacy of welcoming international students to the United States for a higher education. There are a ton of first and second generation immigrant and international students. I think they make up 1 in every 3 that are enrolled in higher education here, and they help strengthen higher education, which we've already discussed they don't want. But they also, they increase overall enrollment figures. And then when they graduate, a majority of them stay here. They stay to contribute to our economy and provide valuable assets and resources to major international companies. I mean, they are helping America be great by bringing their smarts and their talents to the companies that are here in the United States. And so I think it goes against everything they say about caring about the economy and wanting to make America great and strengthening things here. But I also see this as talk about affirmative action. You're not smart enough to get into Harvard, so let's kick out the people who are smart so that we have greater access for.
It's part of this Republican push to undermine American power.
Yes,
I mean that's what this is doing. When you bring in, just as you said, when you bring in international students, you're bringing in talent to America. It is a source of American power and has been for many, many years. The United States has 7 of the world's top 10 universities. We have 13 of the world's top 20 universities. Harvard, by the way, is number 3. And what that means is that a lot of people.
Just out of curiosity, what's number 1? Do you know?
That's a good question. I'd actually have to look that up. I think it's a British university. That's number 1.
Okay.
MIT is number 2. Harvard's number 3. But it's between the UK and the United States. Those 2 countries are the ones that kind of compete for the best colleges in the world. And by the way, where do most international students go? They go to either the United States or the UK. And so right now you're going to see a huge shift to those international students, that talent that provides innovation, entrepreneurship, all these things. Is going to go to the UK. They're going to get the benefit of this, and the United States is going to drop out. Oxford is number 1. I'm being told. Thank you from my wonderful team here. So anyway, it's a source of power. A lot of these students stay here, and these students. It's not just the halting of visas right now, Mallory. I mean, what have we seen in the news? What if you're an international student, like the top student in your country? Wanting to figure out where they're going to go to college, you're seeing international students being rounded up in the United States and sent to like Louisiana.
Yeah.
And then being deported back.
Yeah, I was going to say kidnapped. I mean, let's stop calling it rounding up and deported. People are being kidnapped without due process and sent to places they've never been before. And that would be terrifying. I mean, the fact that I don't want to derail the topic of education, but just on that for a moment, the fact that other countries are warning people not to come to the United States, not to travel to the United States, again, undermining that power, undermining our standing in the world on the global stage. I think it's all tied together. And in addition to that, this is something you and I were just chatting about, but I think it's important to note the attacks on women are very much a part of the attack on higher education. Women are receiving their bachelor's and master's degrees at higher rates than men across the country. They are moving into higher echelons of the workforce and in their career paths than men across the country. And I think it would be naive to think that a portion of the attack on higher education is not in line with sending women back to the kitchen where the Republicans have stated many times they think we belong.
Yeah, it's real. And it's not just these attacks on Harvard University, right? The Trump administration signed an executive order almost immediately, right, to shut down the Department of Education.
Yeah,
they've taken, the Trump is talking about taking billions of dollars away from Harvard for not, let's be real, for not towing the party line.
Yep.
He wants these universities to toe the administration line. I mean, I just think it's dangerous. It's wrong. It's going to undermine American power in the long run. Soft power, they don't like that term. Okay, but power is power. And
well,
this is going to hurt us.
I also think this is something that we mentioned the last time I was on the show, but it bears repeating that these policies and this type of attack on higher education, reducing funding, this is not just when Donald Trump's done, we'll all revert back to whatever, right? These are generational consequences. These are removing people who were going to medical school, to law school, who become the experts in our society for this generation of people. So we're looking at a whole generation that's losing those Pell Grants, losing access to the scholarships that were allowing them to get that education when they go on to become those doctors and lawyers and other experts. So this isn't something that's just minuscule and short-lived throughout the course of this administration. It will have a generational impact on our country, if not longer.
It's terrible. Well, considering President Trump's hostile views toward education, does it come as any surprise that he is horrible at giving commencement addresses?
You know, I watched this speech, and
we're talking about the West Point speech,
the West Point commencement address.
Week.
And so, if you don't know, maybe you don't. My husband went to West Point. His brother went to West Point. His father went to West Point. So West Point family, and I just can't imagine. I've heard the stories of what attending West Point Academy was like. Lots of great stories, but also it's really hard. What those cadets have done for the past 4, some of them 5 years, is extremely difficult. And it is not like everybody else's college experience. There are a ton of rules. There's a lot that you're doing in that age range that is just very different than the average university. It's tough to get through. Yeah. And I can't imagine doing that for 4 years and feeling like I finally did it. I got through it. I made it through all of these inspections and all that stuff, to have Donald Trump foam at the mouth about trophy wives and drag shows. I can't even imagine that. And the poor cadets who he called up on stage without them knowing that they were going to be called on stage, that happened a couple of times. I thought to myself, oh, I can't even imagine what that would feel like, especially if I wasn't a supporter of his. And at my graduation, I was having to shake his hand and be like, hey, thanks for being here, even though you haven't once talked about the fact that this graduation is about the cadets in front of it's just crazy.
I mean, it was crazy, and it was disrespectful. Look, I'm not a West Point grad. I was a Navy grad, so there'll be some jokes here. But all of the academies, Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy, West Point, which is the U.S. Military Academy. If you graduate from there, you go into the U.S. Army. U.S. Naval Academy. If you graduate from there, you go into the Marine Corps or the Navy. All 4 academies are really, really hard. Mm-hmm. They're hard to get into. They're hard to get through. All of them pride things like character and integrity and leadership. And the final day, the final event is your graduation, where you throw up your cap. Everybody in your family attends. It is super emotional. It's also the day you take the oath of office as a second lieutenant to support and defend the Constitution, because your journey at the academy is over, but your journey as an officer leading soldiers or leading Marines or leading sailors has just begun. So it's a big deal, and it all happens that one day. Now, people have said, and I've read online, that people are like, who invited President Trump? He's terrible. Well, folks need to know that the president normally goes to each academy during a term of office. So this year he'll go to West Point. Next year he'll do the commencement address at the Air Force Academy or at the Naval Academy or at Coast Guard, and they kind of rotate that way. Mm-hmm. Now, the other academies get a different commencement speaker, like the Secretary of Defense or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the Vice President. Okay, so that's how that works. They rotate. This year he was assigned or picked himself to go to West Point. And the other thing that people need to know is it's not just the speech itself that was so disrespectful. It's that he wore a Make America Great Again hat, a campaign hat, on stage and in the pass him review when the cadets go in front of him in a formal parade, he's wearing that hat. I have to tell you, that is like giving the big middle finger to everyone who is in the professional military, because the military is apolitical. We're not to be used as a campaign prop. And so, it's going against everything that is the traditional and the norms of the academies and of the military itself. And this is a part of either Donald Trump, either not knowing, not caring.
Yeah, I was not caring.
Not caring. Or having no guardrails, no one around him to be able to, no Mattis, no Kelly, no General McMaster, to say to him, sir, take off the hat.
This is inappropriate.
Go on stage. Here, I'll hold the hat. He doesn't have that anymore. And so therefore, it's super awkward because from the military's perspective, we're looking at this guy and we're thinking, we shouldn't be used as a campaign rally. And then, as you mentioned, the speech, I mean, he's talking about criminals like Al Capone as if they're good people. He's talking about his golf buddies as heroes, not, West Point graduates as heroes, his golf buddies.
It very much was not a commencement speech.
No. All this stuff. At one point, this class of West Point graduates got to hear Trump call our country hot. I mean, that's totally normal. totally normal. This is what I kept thinking. Every time he went back to the prompter, he sounded somewhat reasonable and rational, right? Somebody had written him a commencement speech. Yeah.
And one thing that we've seen over and over again in the news, especially in the past couple of weeks, and I'm not even going to name the people who wrote this book, but this talk about whether or not Joe Biden was mentally fit. But where is the conversation about, we should be driving home that Donald Trump is not mentally sound. The man cannot pull together a coherent sentence, and that was on display. Every time he had a thought in his head to go somewhere else, you were like, what are we talking about? How did we get here? So that was what was really a standout to me. It was, first of all, it was like an hour long, and half of it was him on random tangents about things that had nothing to do with the day or the event. And
I'll say this about Biden, Joe Biden, President Biden. When he gave his commencement addresses, he stayed and he shook all those hands. 1,000
and didn't have to leave because he had somewhere more important to be, apparently.
Trump just took off, says his crazy speech and then leaves. I don't know. The other thing about Donald Trump just in the past few days is his Memorial Day post, which we should all be like used to this now, this craziness, but I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it. I lost friends in combat. I lost friends in the aviation community, in the military, which is an inherently dangerous community to begin with, just in training. That day is really a tough day for me. I'm with my friends and my family, and it's fun. But for me personally, I always remember my friends. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump, our president of the United States, has a social media post that is just super disrespectful for anyone, to anyone who gave the ultimate sacrifice and their families.
Yeah.
And just this country. I mean, his social media post went on about blaming Joe Biden for things, boasting about the Olympics and the World Cup and all these things. He never once talked about what Memorial Day is all about.
Well,
it's terrible.
I also, same here. Memorial Day is in some ways fun. We had the kids, we're out and about and making burgers and things like that. But my husband has also lost friends throughout his time in service. And so every year he does a Murph workout, his way of paying tribute. And I have done that in years past, not this year. Baby said no thanks. But yeah, I mean, we definitely have conversations and talk about the importance of the day, and try to with our kids as well, just so that we're making it known that while all of these fun things are typically happening to start the summer, that this day is really about the people who paid the ultimate price for us to have the freedom to do the things that we do on a daily basis. And I think about, first of all, the fact that Donald Trump has never once in his life ever thought about serving or sacrificing for anything, much less the betterment of this country. And what it said, like when you compare other leaders, not just other presidents and vice presidents, but other leaders and the way that they address the day. And then there's him. Yeah. And you're just like, not one single day out of the year could he just take a moment and say, thank you for those people who served so I didn't have to, since I dodged the draft. I find that to be, there are so many things about Donald Trump that are horrendous to me. But when I think about the amount of people who can look at a post like that and still think there's somewhere inside of him that cares about our military or cares about being the commander in chief of people's lives and their families' lives and their children's lives, it's such a huge responsibility. And posting, that chaos on Memorial Day was just yet another reminder that he's got no clue.
It's over the top. And here's the other thing. The Republicans that they themselves post decent messages for things like Memorial Day and Veterans Day and that sort of thing. And they themselves could give decent commencement speeches if they were told to. But yet somehow they say nothing. Yeah. They say nothing when Trump does this stuff. It's like, oh, let's look the other way. And it's just, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of these guys not having the courage to just say, okay, this is wrong.
You know what I don't understand either is we've seen this time and time again, that Trump is actually quite poisonous to people who run for office, endorsing them. He really isn't good for their look when it comes to getting reelected. So it does continue to surprise me that we do not have more Republicans in elected office that are willing to say, hey guys, this guy's crazy. We actually, have work to do, that we see things differently, but we should be focused on our mission. I think it's just a testament to how greed and power can absolutely override everything else.
It's so crazy because it's one of the most basic American principles to respect those who gave their life for our country. I almost can't believe it. But again, it's part of what we're seeing right now. And on another topic that I think is really important, that it goes against some of the basic American principles, is this idea that Donald Trump is pardoning people for money and supporters of his solely because they are supporters of his. So just in the past week, Donald Trump pardoned a bunch of tax evaders. This is a couple who were reality TV stars. Their names are Todd and Julie Chrisley. And they were convicted, Mallory, by a federal grand jury. So they were not convicted by Biden. Right. They were convicted by a jury, of 12 counts of tax evasion and bank fraud. Fraudulent loans totaling millions of dollars. And with those loans, they bought themselves luxury cars and designer clothes and real estate and travel and all kinds of other stuff. They didn't pay taxes for the years 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. And they were sentenced to 7 and 12 years in federal prison. And you would think that Americans would want people who don't pay their taxes to have some consequences.
Isn't that why everyone's talking about DOGE, reducing fraud, waste, and abuse? This is the ultimate fraud waste and abuse of a system and to not be held accountable. But, it's Trump projecting.
Well,
It's okay
you
for
might
him to do
ask,
it.
projecting because he was a tax evader himself,
Mm-hmm.
but also projecting in terms of these folks were outwardly outspoken and their conservative beliefs, and so
Their
he's
daughter,
trying to.
campaigned for President Trump.
I think she spoke at the RNC convention.
Yes, she has consistently been advocating for her parents, and as a daughter, I guess, but outside of that, I'm not sure. I feel like if this is something that my parents did, and I feel like we're cut from the same cloth. If your parents did this, you would be like, what you did was wrong.
Well,
you should pay the consequence of what you did. It was wrong.
It's one thing to advocate for your parents. It's another thing to say that the Justice Department is unfair and unjust. And that is what she has said, and the Republicans have sort of taken on, undermining our justice system. By the way, so a jury convicted them and an appeals court upheld the conviction. So this is not like a one-off thing. Okay.
Right.
And the other part of this is it's total projection, because Donald Trump has pardoned not only this couple, he pardoned all of the January 6th criminals, rioters, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, that stormed the Capitol and beat up police officers. He pardoned
killed police officers.
Killed police officers. Thank you. He pardoned Illinois former Governor Blagojevich, and I'm going to butcher that name, on corruption charges. He was in prison for corruption charges. Trump pardoned state senator, I don't know his name, but somebody from Tennessee who was convicted of illegal campaign financing, and other politicians for things like federal wire fraud charges, a Virginia sheriff for bribes.
Yeah.
What's the common theme here, Mallory?
It's all money related. And it's all because at the end of the day, Donald Trump's probably done the same thing in every capacity that every one of these folks has. And
they're all Trump supporters.
Yeah.
He's pardoning supporters. And then last night, we are told Trump pardoned this guy, Paul Walchik. I'm going to butcher that name too. He was a nursing home executive who illegally withheld millions of dollars from his own employees, their paychecks, and he used the money to buy a luxury yacht. Trump gave him a pardon after this criminal's mother attended a $1 million in-person event at Mar-a-Lago. So here we go. I mean, we're literally selling. He's literally selling pardons now.
Yeah. Wow. Producers saying that Blagojevich, is that it? Was a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice as well. So there's another connection for you.
That nursing home executive owed like $4 million in a fine. And so the family, the mom who paid $1 million to Donald Trump, she just got out of paying $4 million.
$4 million.
Yeah. So like, and it's going to Trump. It's going to his pocket. I mean, it is. You cannot get more corrupt than that.
Well, one thing I think is really starting to bother me about the media's interaction with Donald Trump regarding things like corruption and criminals is I haven't seen a single reporter in an interview with Donald Trump when he starts talking about deporting people because they're the worst of the worst and they're the criminals and they're the people that are making this country not a safe place, et cetera, et cetera. Why are we not pushing back? I mean, every single journalist should be saying, sir, are you not a criminal? Were you not convicted 34 times?
Yeah.
I'm so confused by the lack of, I don't even want to call it messaging, just truth telling about the fact that the Trump administration and Republicans doing things like this, pardoning actual criminals, people who have actually committed crimes, why we're not pushing back on the fact that they are the criminals. They are the ones who are corrupt as they go about, talking about people who have just come here for a better way of life.
Yeah.
That part really bothers me.
I mean, the moral of the story is, if you want to get away with committing a crime, make sure it's a crime that Trump himself has committed.
And then be a supporter.
Here's something that's somewhat controversial. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but if it were up to Amy McGrath, I would actually get rid of the pardoning power. I don't think it serves a great purpose. We have an appeals court. We have several steps in our justice system to appeal sentences or convictions. And I just feel like this is wrong. It's a source. It's now source for corruption. It was always available there for corruption, but we had this norm where we had, decent presidents that kind of didn't use that power well. Some might argue there were some tweeners in there, but now it's completely being misused. And I just think we need to get away with it.
Well, I think we both know that'll never happen based on where we're at right now. But I agree. I'm not really sure I ever understood the point of it in the first place, outside of being able to just arbitrarily decide who deserves to face their punishment or not. But anyway,
I don't know. Maybe somebody thought it was a check on the judicial branch or something. It's whatever. Give that power to Congress. I'd be okay with that. All right, let's get to quick shots, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, you ready for it? These are rocky times for Trump's best friend and maybe former boyfriend, Elon Musk. He has been publicly speaking out against Trump's big, beautiful bill, as many of us have, claiming that it is destroying the hard work of Doge and it's trying to destroy the economic stability of the United States. And it turns out that trashing the reputation of yourself and your companies and then repeatedly humiliating yourself in public just to appease Donald Trump probably isn't the smartest thing to do. So I hate that no one told that to Elon ahead of time.
I'm not a huge Elon fan. I got to be honest with you. I was kind of disappointed when he went into government service, if you want to call it that. I didn't think that he's so arrogant, has no experience in government. Government is not the same as a business. And then the hatchet job he did with this government efficiency, it's terrible. And we're still going to see the consequences of that. It is not over. He might be gone, but what Doge has done is real. And so good riddance, but yeah.
Well, as somebody who lives in Huntsville, where I'm surrounded by government workers and military, I mean, it's very real. People, friends, losing jobs or going to work on a daily basis, being redirected because of Doge and even Hegseth. That's really real. But I also think I just want to point out, as we continue to talk about corruption, that one thing Musk never did was reduce his own government contracts.
True.
And he's still taking those. So he might be speaking out about this big, beautiful bill, but he's still reaping the benefits of, I think it's $8 million a day from our government.
Yeah. I mean, they've added to it, I believe.
Sure.
All right. Well, also tucked away in this House of Representatives bill, this big, beautiful bill that was passed last week that people need to know about, is a shift in money. And this pertains to the Department of Defense. Now, there was a shift of $1 billion to pay for Trump and Hegseth's border deployment of troops going to the border to, quote, secure the border. What are they really doing? They're really just driving trucks and putting out wire on the border and being there for photo ops. That's my opinion. But we don't really know because there's no transparency right now within the Department of Defense. They've had like one press conference the entire time during the Trump administration. But anyway, $1 billion has been shifted. And you might say, well, okay, well, the military the military budget's pretty big, so that's fine, right? Well, no, because where they took that money from was the updating money that they needed for U.S. Army soldiers' barracks. Yeah. This is really important for people who aren't veterans. A lot of the structures on bases, the living structures are like 50 years old in many of these bases. They have problems with mold, with pests. In the South, where a lot of bases are, they have problems with AC that doesn't work. And this is how we're treating our soldiers. And to me, it's It's also really ironic that a Secretary of Defense who sort of prided himself on being the soldier's secretary, he used to say, quote, "I've been in your boots and Trump has your back," and all this stuff. Well, that's bullshit, because he's not prioritizing their quality of life with repairs that everybody knows are needed.
This is just leadership 101, military aside. If your workforce isn't happy, if their quality of life isn't good, if their living quarters aren't good, they're not going to perform to the ability that they could. And when you talk about having the most lethal military in the world, or whatever his language has been since he's been in this position, it's hard to do that when you can't go home to a house that has air conditioning, or you're worried about your family's health because of mold, or whatever it might be. So again, they say one thing and they do another every single time.
And again, remember last time, the last Trump administration, Trump had to pay for his border wall, right? Because Congress didn't appropriate the money. And so where did he get that money from to pay for it? He took it out of the Department of Defense's schools, and the same budget for housing and all of the things that soldiers need for quality of life. That's where he took the money from. So
just to reiterate, who didn't pay for the wall? You know who didn't pay for it? Mexico, which is all he ever talked about, did not pay for the wall, and they're still not paying for the wall. So again, they say one thing and then they do another.
Well, I've got one more quick shot that I think is really important, and then we're going to get on to cheers. And this is actually kind of moving into the cheers, because we talked a lot about some negative things that have happened, and we always want to end the show on like positive stuff. But I've got one more quick shot that I think is kind of positive. Federal court, just in the last day or so, blocked Trump's tariffs. It's the United States Court of International Trade. And it ruled that Trump overstepped his authority when he invoked the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act to declare a national emergency to justify his sweeping tariffs. So the court said, no, that's good. It was bad for the stock market because you know the uncertainty is crazy right now in our economy because of Trump's tariffs. But it's good that a court blocked. Of course, it'll be appealed, Mallory. It'll go to the Court of Appeals. It may end up going to the Supreme Court. But look, I don't have my pocket constitution on me, but I wish I did, because it's in the Constitution, folks. Only Congress can impose tariffs, not the president, and we should not be using. It's great that the court said, hey, he should not be declaring a national emergency to unilaterally have imposed tariffs on the entire world.
Well, Congress should hold the purse strings of all things, Doge, tariffs, but we'll take that as a win. So much winning for Trump this past week or so, between the tariffs and Elon and whatever was going on with him and his other boyfriend, Putin. It's just,
we don't have time to get into that.
I know.
But I will say Denver Riggleman, my normal co-host, our normal co-host is in Ukraine, or he's in traveling there. So our next episode, we're going to be talking from Ukraine, and we'll get an update on everything that's going there. But we have some cheers to end today's show. You've got your, what were you drinking again, Mallory?
I'm just drinking coffee.
Okay, that's cool. Coffee's cool. I got my horse soldier whiskey, so I'll have double for you here. Cheers to Abigail Spanberger. Yes. So Abigail Spanberger is the Democratic candidate for the governorship in Virginia, which is happening this year. That election's happening this year. She is reportedly 17 points up against her Republican opponent. Love Abigail. Denver, by the way, appeared with Abigail in one of her ads for her last campaign for Congress. So, and I know her as well personally. She's amazing. She's a former CIA agent, then who ran for Congress with me at the same time in 2018, flipped a red district, made it blue, has done tremendous things for Virginia, and hopefully she will be the governor. You should check out her campaign. She's amazing, and support that. And also, I want to cheers to Mikey Sherrill, who is running for New Jersey governor. Mikey is another Naval Academy graduate, along with me, helicopter pilot. She also ran in 2018 for Congress, and I think flipped a red district there in New Jersey, and now she's running for governor. Mikey Sherrill's primary is June 10th, so track that and then come listen to our live show at 7:30 that night on June 10th. But here's to cheers to Abigail and Mikey in their races for governor. We need good leaders in this country, and both of them are fantastic leaders. Cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
All right. Everyone, thanks for watching or listening wherever you are. Remember to follow us on social media, and wherever you listen, your preferred podcast platform, please rate and review us. Email us your questions, your comments, and join us for that live show, June 10th, 7:30. Great to have you with us, Mallory. Thank you for being co-host today on Truth in the Barrel. We had a great show, and we'll see you next week.